Open Minds Media. The reality we live in can be a very strange place. Most of the time, fact being stranger than fiction. How will we ever start to understand this reality we live in unless we question everything? Join me and a guest as we unravel the mysteries of this reality, one topic at a time. This is Inquiries of Our Reality with Shayn Jones.
What is up, Inquirers, and welcome to the expanse of deep open-minded conversation. I'm the one they call Shane, and today for you guys, I have Miya from the Wake Up with Miya podcast, all the way from the islands of Hawaii, to share some of the beliefs and lore of that volcanic region, along with her experiences of waking up and starting her show. But before we get into that, of course, we have a couple of quick news and updates. First and foremost, for anybody that made it out to the last Bizarre Inquiries Live, we definitely appreciate you guys, and we're hoping that you guys will pop out to the next one, which leads me to my next point. The next live episode of Bizarre Inquiries will be on September 4th at 7:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if anyone would like to submit any questions, clips, or articles for that episode, make sure you guys get it to us before then. But if you don't, we'll of course pass it on to the next episode, and there will be more information on that as we get a little bit closer. And the next piece of news and updates is that the t-shirt giveaway is still going on. If anybody is interested in winning a free t-shirt of their choice off of the Open Minds Media merch store, all you guys have to do is go and fill out a quick 8-question survey, and all of those thoughts and opinions go towards helping the show grow and improve. So if you guys don't mind taking a few minutes to give me your thoughts, I would greatly appreciate it. And all else fails, you might even win a free t-shirt out of it. And speaking of t-shirts, if you guys would be interested in supporting the show, there are a handful of ways that you guys can do so. First and foremost, you guys can follow the show on Instagram or Facebook. You guys can also go and check out the Patreon with 2 tiers available, ad-free / early access and full access. You guys can also go and check out the merch store, t-shirts starting at just $15.68 plus shipping. You guys could even leave a review or rating for the show, which of course I will read on the show and give you guys a big shout out. You guys can also share the show with a friend if you think that anybody would really enjoy what we talk about over here. And you guys can also catch live episodes of the show. You guys could even donate to the show if you guys appreciate the work I put in over here. You guys can check out the affiliate links with some additional discounts and credits available. More information on that down below. And the last way you guys can support the show and all the work I do over here is by going and checking out my other show, Bizarre Encounters with Shayn Orin. Might even give you something extra to listen to get you through your work week. And anything you guys do, I greatly appreciate. All links to everything I mentioned are all available off of the link tree, which is available down in that show description. And just one last thing before we get into the show, if anyone is interested in being a guest on the show, sharing their experiences or encounters, or contacting me for any reason whatsoever, you guys can do so through email, which is inquiriesofourrealitypodcast@outlook.com, or you guys can also call or text the OMM hotline. That number is 313-364-1551, and you guys can call or text that 24/7 to make it a little bit easier for you guys. And with that, let's get into the show. Please welcome to the show, Miya from the Wake Up with Miya podcast. How's it going today?
Hi, aloha. Doing well.
Absolute pleasure to have you on the show after having the privilege of being on your show, actually. And I think you randomly hit me up, so that was kind of how we ended up connecting and everything like that. So it's definitely an honor to be able to turn the tables on you this time.
Yes, thank you.
And from last time we were talking, I know that there's a lot of interesting stuff that we're definitely going to have to get into, such as some of your folklore around the area that you live in, which we'll kind of get into in a little bit here. But for anybody that may not be familiar with who you are, what you do, and what exactly you do over there on your podcast, why don't you fill them in a little bit?
Okay. Well, aloha, and thank you very much for having me on your show. I'm Miya, and I grew up on Oahu, immersed in this vibrant, multicultural, and beautiful place here in Hawaii. I'm not Hawaiian, but I have a deep respect of these islands here, the culture, their stories, and I love spreading the aloha wherever I go. As long as people are nice to me, then they'll get the aloha. A few years ago, I started a blog called Sensible Hippie, and there I was diving into holistic health, alternative healing, natural living, mindfulness, herbal remedies, things like that. So that passion for questioning the mainstream kind of led me to launch my podcast with the same name at the time before, Sensible Hippie Podcast. Now it's called Wake Up with Miya. It began with a focus on mindset and manifesting money, positive thinking, and helping people break free from limiting beliefs. And over time, it evolved into something more bolder and a space for alternative ideas and deep dive into the unknown. So now we explore topics like the Nephilim, Wendigo, werewolves, and even SRA, which is satanic ritual abuse. And I'm always pushing listeners to think outside the box and question what's out there. So now my podcast is called Wake Up with Miya.
Well, I can definitely appreciate that. It's one of those things that as you end up doing your show, it kind of grows and it turns into something else because you always have this interest when you first come in. You have this idea of what you want your podcast to be. And then once you start really getting into stuff and you realize that this connects into this connects into this, it doesn't seem like it's too far before somebody starts off with a Sasquatch podcast. And the next thing you know, they're talking about conspiracies and all this other stuff. Or somebody who comes up with like a podcast talking about spirituality. And then they start getting into all these different creatures and realizing everything connects. Like, I don't understand how people can stay on like one track. Like, I'd have such a hard time doing that. Like, props to people like Sasquatch Chronicles that can just talk Sasquatch all the time. Like, I would not be able to do that because I'm just so ADHD. It's like, if there's an open-minded topic that interests me, I'm over here, I'm over there. Like, it's hard just to stay in one lane for the show. So, again, I can totally understand that, talking from my perspective, too, here.
Exactly. And I love going down different avenues and different roads and different rabbit holes. It's interesting. And you get to meet so much different people by doing so, you know?
Yeah,
an open mind.
You say, and you never know what people you might end up coming across, and what piece of information they might connect in with some other research that seems like it's unrelated. So it's kind of like a weird thing as like a podcaster. I'm always saying that, like, we do our own research. We do deep dive episodes and stuff like that. But part of the fun of it is when we talk to these like heavy hitter researchers, we can start connecting some of these ideas. And I'm not saying that we take credit for anything like that for it, but it's nice to kind of be that bridge where you can start connecting this person's research with this person's research where, normally these two wouldn't talk, especially when you're running a show like ours where they're kind of diverse as far as topics go. You might end up connecting this cryptid researcher with this other person that's talking about spirituality, and they would have never connected otherwise unless they had that bridge conversation in the middle. So at least as podcasters, we can do that with our open-minded discussions.
Yes, I know. I love it.
So I guess another really interesting spot to start is you mentioned the fact that you live in Hawaii, of course, but you're not native to Hawaii. When did you move there, just out of curiosity? And what kind of sparked your interest with some of the local folklore, for example?
Well, I was raised here from when I was like 3, so this is all I remember. Hawaii. So I grew up here. I went to school here. I'm not Hawaiian, so meaning I don't have Hawaiian blood. My parents are not Hawaiian. My mom is from Japan, and my dad is from the mainland. But they raised me and my brother here in Hawaii. So I don't know, just growing up here in Hawaii, back then anyway, I don't think it's so much that way today anyway. But when I was in school, I went to a Li'iolani school, which is in Kaimuki. And they taught us back then like Hawaiian, like You learn Hawaiian words, you learn the alphabet, you learn the hula, you learn stories and myths. I mean, so that was always part of the culture here when I was growing up. There was nothing unusual about that. That was just part of the way we grew up. So
is the language still like regularly, just out of curiosity, is the language still regularly spoken as like a fluent language, or is it one of those languages where it's more like you kind of use like expressions, but you don't really see too many people using like it fluently?
That's correct. It's not so much fluently, but there is, when you go to certain schools like Kamehameha High School or Kamehameha schools, they teach their children there how to speak Hawaiian, and they speak that good, unlike someone like me that I wouldn't know how to say whole sentences, just maybe words here and there and know the meanings like most of us here locally.
Yeah, it seems like it's turned into one of those things where it's like a kind of like a combining language now, where there's not a lot of people that speak it like fluently. It's kind of more so like most people are native English speakers and they kind of learn these connecting phrases, and then just being local, it's almost kind of like slang after a certain extent, that you kind of just start using these expressions just because you're in the area. It's what everybody else uses for things, and I'm sure you kind of just pick up on things, but yeah, again, kind of probably hard to speak it fluently.
Yes, for sure. And actually there's a new movie out. I don't know if anyone heard. I think it's called Chief Warrior. It's with Jason Momoa, and the whole movie, it's about true history of Hawaii. It just got released on Apple, I think a week or two ago. There's only 2 episodes out, and it's all in Hawaiian, the whole thing. So you'd have to read the subtitles.
Oh, that sounds awesome. I'm a big fan of, as far as movies go, it's kind of like how Guillermo del Toro does things where, if this scene takes place in Spain, they're speaking Spanish. If this scene takes place in England, they're speaking English. I'm a big fan of like the whole idea of like, not necessarily like blending stuff together, but if you're going to do a movie that's about a particular culture, like you might as well go all out. Like everybody has to be that culture. If they speak the language, that's even better. Like it's always really cool to see that type of stuff, because then it's like, it doesn't take away from the story. It kind of gives you a better layout of like history, because there's a lot of stuff nowadays, as you see, where like they start kind of mixing these things around history, and it just starts making it a little bit confusing for people when there's characters that wouldn't necessarily exist in those places in time. But you gotta check the box, of course.
Yes, it's a good show. I highly recommend it.
But I guess kind of getting back into Hawaii, as far as I guess kind of going back to the folklore itself, I know a lot of people may not know necessarily like what the natives believe like the origin of like people in Hawaii is. So, if you've heard some of those stories, if you'd like to fill in the listeners, I'm sure they definitely love to hear about the origin stories of Hawaii.
Yeah, so I know that the origins of Hawaii started with the Polynesian islands, and they canoed it here to Hawaii. I don't know if Maui was the first island. I'm not sure which island they landed on first, but yes, they came from Polynesia. So they brought the culture from there to Hawaii and made it their own here. But if you was to look, there's a lot of similarities between Tahiti and other islands like that as well with Hawaii. They have the same almost the same words, the same dances, things like that.
And I'm assuming that probably a lot of like the folklore creatures were kind of brought over, because it seems like, same with like migrating from people from Europe coming over to North America, some of the figures may change names, but it seems like the archetype or like the creature for itself doesn't really change too much. So I'm sure there's a lot of like conjoining folklore and a lot of beliefs with that got brought over. And I'm not 100% sure how far you want to get into like the Menehune and everything, because I'm sure that's probably one that everybody talks about when they talk about Hawaii. But just out of curiosity, is that one that might connect a little bit farther back too?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the beliefs are in Tahiti, things like that. I don't think a lot of people in Hawaii know that, to be honest. But in Hawaii, in 1795, I believe it was, King Kamehameha, he fought one of the bloodiest wars here in Oahu's history. So they went up to the Pali. There was like hundreds of warriors that went off, and they fought at this point in the Pali Lookout. So now today it's very sacred because these warriors, when they fought, they fought them and pushed them and battled them over the cliff. So there was hundreds of deaths that were that happened in that area. They had found bones. I think it was over 800 bones at the bottom of this cliff when they were making the highway back in, I don't know when they made the highway, in the early 1900s or something like that. But that's kind of where it began, where this night marchers, there are these phantom warriors of Hawaii. They're seen walking through valleys and across beaches and even modern neighborhoods today. So they're not in costume, but they're actually in full regalia. They carry torches and they blow the conch shells, and people can hear them chanting. So people are taught here that when you see them, you can't look at them. You must lie facing down. If you was to stare at them, then you could invite death. So that's really, that's something that we here in Hawaii know to respect these night marchers. And there's many people that have seen and heard them.
Hold on tight, guys. We'll be right back after this brief commercial break. And now back to the show. Just out of curiosity, have you met or talked to anybody by chance who's had an encounter or an experience with these things?
A long, long time ago, I don't remember the full story. I was young, and they told me that they live in the Pali area, which is the mountain in that area, and they have heard the marches, the conch shells, the chanting, the beating of the drums, and sometimes they can pass through your home. It's very scary.
I wonder if the volcanic rock itself that like the island's made up of might have something to do with it. Because I know that, when it comes to a lot of this like paranormal stuff, a lot of people talk about like the mineral makeup of like the land itself. And, considering that it's still relatively, it is an active volcano. I mean, there's a few areas in Hawaii that it's still constantly spewing magma. You have all the volcanic rock. I mean, I'm sure that plays like a huge role when it comes to this type of stuff, especially the active lava itself. Talk about some like positively charged, I guess, could be negatively charged also, land itself, that it's constantly flowing, constantly moving. And I'm sure it's one of those things that, at least with these types of beings, like the more paranormal side of these beings and stuff like that. I mean, the land itself is so ancient, and it's such like a small landmass that it's one of those things that, if something happens there, it's echoed through time. Everybody talks about it. Like, it's one of those things that it just becomes so finely in tune in the land and in the culture that, even if there may not have fully been something at first, you kind of get into like the whole topa idea that if enough people are kind of projecting this thought that these things are around, that, people probably are going to start seeing these things, even if they maybe got to a point where they kind of disappeared and then the idea of them kind of phased them back, so to speak.
Absolutely. And with the volcano, so we have here in Hawaii the Pele. She's the volcano goddess. And she's the goddess of fire, lightning, a volcano. And she's one of the most feared deities in Hawaiian mythology. She's said to reside in Hale Ma'omau, which is the crater at Kilauea volcano on the Big Island. And her temper, they say, is as fiery as the lava she commands. But she is well known, not only for being on the Big Island, but even on this island where I live on, that people see her walking at night, usually. Sometimes not too far from where I live. They say that if someone is walking and they encounter you, if she's an old lady, usually wearing red or sometimes white, or she can be a beautiful woman. And she may approach you asking for something to drink or a ride. If you take her, and you'll be blessed, like usually people will see her hop in the car and they'll be driving, and a mile or so later, they'll look in the back mirror and she's gone. She's nowhere to be found. But those people will be blessed because they helped her. if you disregard her, you be disrespectful, you will be cursed, and even possibly your family, and could even bring death upon you. So yeah, that is a well-known legend here in Hawaii with Pele.
So just at least from like the last couple of stories and from a couple other different stories I've heard, it seems like with a lot of like the Hawaiian, I guess for lack of a better term, like gods and goddesses, unlike a lot of other places, it kind of seems like they're still around, still kind of involved in the land, because it seems like a lot of these stories, you kind of talk about these beings that were once here, but they're not necessarily here anymore. When you talk about these other different pantheons, like, you know, talking about Europe and stuff like that, like they kind of exist somewhere else. But I find it absolutely fascinating that it seems like with a lot of the Hawaiian stuff, it's like, this is the exact crater where she is. This is the exact spot where they are. This is exactly where they are. Like there's a lot more of a connection with the land, which probably also kind of plays into the role on why people are a lot more connected with the land, I guess, than some of these other areas, even if they have had roots here for thousands of years, you know?
Yes, that's so true. When you speak to local people, they won't tell you, when they talk about Pele, it's not that she doesn't exist or she's a folklore. I mean, they believe that she's still here. They talk about her as though, like you said, she's still here today. And in the Big Island, when she's erupting, they will give offerings to her, and they will set food. And a lot of times you can see the lava flow go around the offerings, and it saves homes, because people are asking her, please don't destroy my home. I respect you, and here's an offering, and she will respect that and will go around the home. So yes, she is alive in the people's hearts still today.
So you talk about having to have like a really, really deep connection with the land itself, considering that it is like an active volcano. It's one of those things that it's either, you know, if you try to stomp over the land, it's gonna take its course back. But if you learn how to kind of work with the land, you know, whether you see that as it's these archetype type beings or these entities, or if it's a literal sense, it's like, you know, in that small of a place where it's that much beauty, but it's also that dangerous. It's like you really, really you don't really have a choice but to learn how to work with the land itself.
Yeah, and we yes, the people here respect the land, the Aina. We respect the Aina here in Hawaii, and we hate when, I guess everywhere is the same, when tourists comes or people come and they disrespect. You know, we hate that. We hate seeing that. That just brings us so angry here to see that. It's so disrespectful sometimes how people treat the land when they come and visit. You know, it's like when people come to your house and they don't respect your home. They put their feet on your chair or something like that. It's so disrespectful. You don't do that when you go to someone's house. And it's the same when you come visit the islands here. You know, there's certain I don't know, certain things here that you just gotta respect, you know, and sometimes it's, you wouldn't think you have to say it, but I guess you do sometimes. And another well-known belief in Hawaii is what you're talking about, the land. When people take the lava or the rocks or sand, that brings serious misfortune to a lot of people. So I don't know if people do that on purpose. I mean, they come here and they see the black sand, or it's kind of greenish sand, or the rocks, and they'll bring it home. And many tourists, I mean, we have warned them, don't, I believe there's even signs that says, don't take the rocks from here. You know, respect the land, leave it here. But they ignore that. And a lot of times they will send the rocks back to Hawaii. And we get, I think, huge piles of returned rocks and sand with letters attached to them, saying that they had so much misfortune as soon as they brought this sand or rock or whatever it was back home. And they're very sorry. And they don't want to disrespect Pele, and to please return this back to the land. And of course, if you talk to the people in the volcano park rangers, they don't know exactly where the land, the rock was taken, so they don't know where to put it back. So I think there was a pile somewhere, they said, is what I was told. So
kind of reminds me of like the Bell Witch Cave, or there's a few other different places like that people just, they don't believe it. Next thing you know, they're like have this chain of bad luck and they end up sending it back. Like, I love hearing the stories about the people that don't believe in anything, and next thing you know, they're sending sand back somewhere. Like, that's one of those perfect bits of karma, you know?
Exactly. I mean, we tell them not to take it. Don't take it. It's not yours to take. That's the land here. Leave it here. But so they get bad luck. And apparently when they return it, all their luck changes again and it goes back to the other way. So there's something to be said about that.
See, I'm a big proponent of this idea that it seems like it's very fringe to talk about as far as the United States goes, but I know Japan does it. And of course, everybody has to kind of have their tourist culture because it brings in, money to the economy. And especially being a small island, I'm sure you guys need it to some extent. Like, you wouldn't want tourism to stop completely. It's just a matter of respecting certain areas.
Exactly.
And Japan, for example, they've started doing something. I don't know when they started it, but basically there's certain areas that are only intended for like the Japanese, and tourists are not allowed in these areas. And if you end up going into these areas and you're a tourist and you don't have an ID and everything, then you end up getting fined for it because it's a completely restricted area, because they're sacred areas, especially in Japan. And, prime example, talking about Hawaii, there's a lot of these very sacred areas and they end up getting destroyed by tourists. I wish that it would be something that would be talked about in the United States, that we could take some of these areas and just say, this is for just the locals. Like, as much as I would love to come and see some of these places, like, I can respect the fact that some of these places will only exist in the future if nobody besides the people that truly deeply care about them are the only people that are able to access these points. And especially if it has some type of like religious or belief connected to it, then that's just especially a point. Like, it doesn't matter how beautiful the temple is. If you don't believe in that thing, like, you probably don't have a reason to be there in the first place. And I just wish that there was a lot more areas in the United States that this would be talked about. But Hawaii seems to be one of those ones, because the locals are just constantly getting pushed out, and it seems like the main factor when it comes to it, and the reason why some of these laws haven't been passed, is because, unfortunately, a lot of the elites have money and they have interest in Hawaii itself, and if they cared about preserving the land for the locals, they wouldn't be trying to push the locals out themselves, or have people where they're a couple families deep in a house now just so that they can stay on their native land.
Yeah, exactly. It's called price out of paradise. A lot of us local people cannot afford to stay here. I mean, even when my husband and I retire, we already know we can't stay here. There's no way we could live here on this island. Despite we want to, we couldn't. So we have to move. So, maybe within 10 years or so, we may have to vacate the islands, unfortunately. But it's the sad truth. It's so expensive here. It's ridiculous.
I don't think people realize how isolated and how it's one of those things. It's not like a big landmass. Like, you can't add onto it. Like, the land that's there is the land that's there. And like, I don't know how many people have actually looked at Hawaii like on a map, but I showed my girlfriend not too long ago, and she didn't realize that it's literally like in the middle of the ocean. Like, there's I don't think there's like a farther point from land. Like, everybody looks at a map and they think it's just right there, but it's way out in the middle of nowhere. So just again, to prove a point that it's like, there's no landmass being added on. You can't, get to a point where you just end up building up all these concrete jungles around it, connecting freeways. Like, it's secluded all on its own, and it is what it is. Yeah.
Parking is a pain here. I mean, parking is really hard to come by here. A lot of places. Yeah. We are so in the middle of nothing here, but I don't know if you heard something called the Ring of Fire. We are surrounded by all these volcanic activity, and Hawaii is right in the center of it. So California, Brazil, Mexico, Japan, Philippines, all around us is volcanic activity, and we're right in the center, which is why a couple days ago when Russia had that earthquake, we had a tsunami warning here, and everybody was going crazy.
Inquiries of Our Reality will be right back after this brief commercial break, so stay tuned. And now back to the show. That's another thing I was going to ask you about, because I haven't had the opportunity to actually ask somebody from Hawaii about that, but like, just looking at Hawaii, I'm assuming that like a tsunami wave could probably just cover like the entire island. Like, how do you like deal with that situation down there? Like, if you got to a point where there was, giant waves coming in, like, is it a matter of just trying to congregate to like the center of the island and go up, or like, how do you deal with that situation when there's nowhere to run, coming from like a landlocked Michigander who's from, near the Great Lakes, where I've never even dealt with a giant wave in my entire life. Like, I have no standard of comparison here.
Well, so far anyway, my whole life, and I mean, there's not been a tsunami that came on this island that I'm aware of. I mean, the tsunamis that hit our island is very small. Now, there was a tsunami back in, I think it was the 60s, that hit Hilo, which is on the Big Island. And that destroyed and killed a lot of people, I believe, but it doesn't cover the whole island. Yeah, I mean, it's impossible to cover the whole island. And I think a lot of people think that, because I heard that there was a lot of people on TikTok saying that very thing that you were just saying. When the tsunami warnings came a couple days ago, they were freaked out and they're like, oh my God, we're gonna die.
See, I have no standard of comparison.
Like, it's fine. Like, the mountain is not too far from here. So even if there was gridlock, we would just walk up the mountain. We could anyway. We were waiting for the tsunami to hit Kauai first. And it was supposed to hit there at 7 p.m. and here on this island at 7:10. So we had 10 minutes. So we were like, okay, if a tsunami comes to Kauai, then we were going to hit the mountain. And we already had our little tiny bag packed just in case we had to go up there. But yeah, and I'm right there. I don't know if you can see, but water is right there. So it's like, I don't know. The local people, I think that panic, when someone starts to panic, it causes the chain reaction in Hawaii. So you're kind of forced to leave work, because they said, okay, everybody go home. We got this tsunami warning at like 2:30 in the afternoon, and everybody panicked. I mean, well, okay, let me repeat. So the first tsunami warning came, everybody looked at it probably and said, okay, like normal, like, oh, whatever. We just brushed it off. And then after the second tsunami warning, we're like, wait a minute. And then there was the sirens going off on the island, and I'm texting my husband and my son. I'm like, oh my God, guys, like, I think you guys should just come home, because I know when the last tsunami that I was in here in Hawaii, it was probably like the 80s. I was in high school and they kind of did the same thing. We heard the sirens. This was before internet, and everybody said, you got to go home. So, that caused the panic when they said go home. So I think they started to let everybody out at work. And when that happened, it caused a huge gridlock, and everybody was stuck in traffic for a couple of hours trying to get home, which was also, it was like, normally it would only take you a few, maybe minutes, 20 minutes, but they were stuck on the highway or the back roads for so long, hours. So, yeah, it caused a panic, because when they start panicking like that, it causes a chain reaction. You have no choice but to be forced in that situation. You got to go too. You got to leave, but now you're stuck in that traffic, and yeah. But if it wasn't for that, I mean, we're all like, whatever, we'll be fine.
See, my assumption is that like a lot of like the housing would be like on the lower spots next to the beach and stuff. Like that would be like my moment of like fear. I would assume that there's probably not a lot of houses up on like the mountains or anything like that. Like I'm sure that there's probably a lot of spaces to evade, but I'd be more worried about like the property damage, just because everybody wants to have a house that's relatively close to the beach, People don't consider that when they end up living in a tsunami area is, maybe it's not the best idea to be too close to the beach. Close enough that you can walk and enjoy it, but maybe not have your house directly on it.
Yeah, that's true. But the insurance is crazy, I heard.
Oh, yeah.
I think just recently the insurance went up a whole lot. If you live by the water, then it jumps up to a lot of money. A lot.
You get a massive discount on your insurance if you have a blue roof in Hawaii, though, right?
Yeah, apparently in Maui, yeah. Yep.
So I guess kind of switching gears just a little bit, just considering that you're a local, and this is probably the first opportunity I've had to talk to somebody about it who's actually been there and gotten to check out some of these places. I kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier in the show, but I kind of want to get into the locals' understanding of the Menehune, and if you've ever been to some of their sites, I would love to kind of hear like a firsthand perspective on what some of these places are like.
Yeah, so like Menehunes, there's a lot of places here, even on Oahu, where they build little fish ponds or walls, but they're really tiny. Apparently, Menehunes are about 2 to 3 feet tall. They're very short in stature, but they're very strong, and they are master builders. So they can literally build a wall. I forget how long this wall was, very long, on the Big Island. And fish ponds, they can build it overnight. That's impressive, these little guys. Yeah. That's really, I think, with the Menehunes. I know they also said that they live deep in the forest. They don't want you to see them for some reason. They don't want to be looked upon. If you see them, they hide. They don't want you to see them. But they're real because I think there was those sensors, those, how many people live on the island kind of thing. What do you call them?
The census?
The census. Thank you. They took one of those, I think it was back in early 1900s. And there was like a handful that said that they were Menehunes.
Yeah, I mean, I've come across, I think, at least one or two people that claim to have come across Menehune. I think one of them was on Monsters Among Us. Somebody was talking about they were somewhere near, I think, one of like the ponds or something like that, and they saw these like little heads like peeking out at them, and as soon as they like noticed them and started walking towards them, they all like took off. And I think another one was from Phantoms and Monsters or something where somebody was like out at night, they were fishing or something like that. They started hearing some splashing around in the water. And then they said this thing like disappeared into the ground. That was like the best way they describe it. Like it looked like it like went down and just like disappeared. But It's one of those things kind of like you were talking about with the entities that a lot of people that have kind of had a conversation with about these, they kind of talk about them almost kind of like how the Native Americans, in North America talk about like the little people, that it's not that they're these like folkloric creatures or anything, but they're just these things that existed around them and everybody was just kind of like, yeah, okay, nothing big, no big deal here. And I mean, to a certain extent, I mean, it's one of those things kind of like Sasquatch. If you're seeing these miniature people archetypes a little bit of everywhere, like maybe there's something to it, especially in Hawaii where there's actually some leftover things that you can see of
there
these.
Is. You can see their wall. I mean, they're small, but they're long. It stretches for a very long time. I forget how big they were. 2 feet. It wasn't very big, but yeah, that's kind of cute.
You want to talk about some possible science, maybe backing up some ancient history with this too. I know that there's the whole concept about in some like pocket island areas that they'll eventually adapt to have like smaller species of things. And I think it was in Malaysia or in some Asian country, there was the whole like dwarf elephants, like these really, really small elephants that supposedly existed at one point. I don't think they still exist, but they talk about like basically these things they'll become smaller in order to be able to make the food source be able to last for like the group. So if they're bigger, there's less food, a lot of them will die out. If they start adapting and become smaller in these smaller island pocket areas, then, they end up having more food for a little bit of everybody. So it's kind of a funny thought that you originally think of like, Polynesian people as being like these really, really big, burly guys. But it's funny that if you really think about the scientific origin of it, I mean, it probably makes sense that at least when like humans were first in this area, whether you want to call it humans or some cousin of humans, of course, it would make sense for them to have been smaller until they learned how to kind of adapt to the land, build the land bigger, be able to have agriculture going on the land, all of this type of stuff. And then I'm sure at some point there was probably a mixture of some other different Polynesian countries that were coming in, and maybe they kind of started breeding in with them, and maybe there are Menehune that still exist through bloodline. And then on the other flip side, maybe there are still like true blood Menehune who decided to live the old way, and whatever that might be, that they're hiding in the woods, or they have some type of like cave systems that they live in. I mean, that might still be existing out there. I mean, it definitely seems like there's random sightings here and there to add at least a little bit of speculation to it.
Yeah, exactly. And you're right that they're not actually Hawaiian, but they believe that they're an actual civilization of themselves, whatever that is, that just happened to be here and coexisting with the Hawaiians at the time. Yeah.
They may have been the original, island dwellers before the Hawaiians got there in the first place. I don't know how far you've dug into like ancient folklore / history of like Hawaii, but I don't know if there's maybe a point where they say that they were there before them or something, or maybe they came a little bit after them. Kind of curious if there is some type of clarification within the folklore.
Yeah, I've never bumped into that, to be honest. I never heard that. Just that they kind of coexisted and they could be separate. They're not the Hawaiian people, or some people may think that they are, but I believe that they're a different civilization compared to the Hawaiians. But they were warriors, though, apparently the Menehunes. They're very strong.
And just out of curiosity, have you ever come across anybody that may have mentioned that they may have come across one of these things by chance?
No. My whole life living here, never heard anyone that actually saw or met Menehune. Not one.
I feel like that's one of those things that it's like, well, people are kind of open about things, but when you're just like, yeah, I saw a Menehune, I feel like that's one of those ones that maybe it's too known by people that you might feel a little bit ridiculous going around telling people that you've seen it, because I feel like with a lot of people that may not be familiar with the islands themselves, like the first folklore being I feel like you really learn about Hawaii is probably the Menehune. So, maybe that's one of those ones that it's just like, if you have a sighting, you kind of just leave it to yourself. Or on the flip side, it's a matter of respect for the island, where if you see some Menehune, you don't tell anybody because you figure that's their area. And if I tell anybody that they're there, then maybe they'll come back and look for me because I let everybody know where they were.
That is true. I think that one is probably more so. Yeah. For sure.
Say, especially if they're warrior types, you definitely got to look out because, little mini warriors, they could sneak up on you real quick.
Exactly.
Hold that thought. We'll be right back after this brief commercial break. And now back to that deep conversation you crave.
And in Hawaii, we have something called the amakua, which is a family guardian or spirit here in Hawaii, the culture. And the spirits are believed to be more of an ancestral deity or a loved one that have passed on and has now served as a protector. And a lot of times this protector can guide you or watch over you or your descendants. And this amakua, they take physical forms of animals. A lot of times sharks, owls, pueo is owl. Lizard is mo'o. Shark is the mano. So the families here, they typically have a specific amakua that appears during either whether they're dreams or but they always stay with the family. So a lot of times the Hawaiians will know what their ancestral spirit is. I think that's really cool too.
And it always stays like the same animal, like throughout the family type of a thing. So it's like not just the spirit animal concept like most people have, where it's kind of individual per person, but one continuous one for the family themselves.
Yeah, that's the way. Yeah, that's the way it is, I believe here. And they don't, disrespect that. So if you see a lizard, like in Hawaii, if you see a lizard, local people, I should say, I'm not saying outside of that, but local people, we don't kill the lizard. You may catch them, and for me, I'll just put them outside, but I won't kill it, But a lot of people in the mainland are afraid because they come in the house, the lizards and the geckos, they come in, but they're good. They're good for your home because they eat spiders and bugs and things like that. So they're good. But we don't disturb them. We'll leave it. And some of my friends, their amakua is sharks, which is pretty cool. If they have that as their guardian, so that when they go to the ocean, they're not afraid. They respect the ocean, they respect the water, and they know that their guardian is watching. So they may see the shark a lot too, and they're not afraid.
Say, it seems like, at least from like my perspective, that it seems like with a lot of like the Hawaiian belief, like it's definitely like I was kind of mentioning earlier, based around the land, but when somebody passes, they kind of become one with the land again, not just in like the typical sense of like being buried and becoming part of the land again, but like your consciousness, you're being yourself. It seems like, at least with Hawaiian folklore, and correct me if I'm wrong, the island almost like recycles within like itself. Like the consciousness just stays within the island, and it's this continuous thing, which is why, again, there's so much respect for the island itself, is because, you never know what could be one of your ancestors, what it would be cause of disrespecting your ancestors, or even disrespecting somebody else's ancestors by, killing or shooing away the wrong animal or something like that, for example, because just this continuous flowing with just, again, consciousness all centered around this island itself.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah. Yeah. It's always sad when, I know that, a lot of times we have a lot of tiger sharks here and things like that, but that could be someone's amakua, and it is patrolling the area here in Hawaii, all over. I mean, we live on an island. We're surrounded by water. Of course, we're going to have sharks, and sometimes they attack, unfortunately. But yeah, to hunt them down and to kill them is really, that's a bad thing. That's not good. We don't really like that.
It's one of those things that it's like a shark is only going to attack if it's provoked, if it smells blood in the water, if it smells chum in the water. Yeah. They're beautiful things, but you got to respect the fact that nature will come back and bite you. I mean, you're not going to go out and kill a lion or be mad at a lion for being a lion. So the same goes with being a shark. You can't get mad at a shark for being a shark. They're just doing what they naturally are supposed to do.
Exactly. I saw a shark. We see sharks here all the time. Usually hammerheads, though, that come around the marina right here. And they're pretty cool. And we saw one attacking a honu, a turtle. And I felt so bad though watching that. It was I was trying to help the turtle, but there's no way I could help the turtle. The turtle looked like it was an old turtle. Like it was big. It was really, really a big, like a grandma turtle. And he was getting attacked by the hammerhead, and he was trying to drown the turtle. He was bringing it down, and I was like, no! I had like a paddle, and I was like hitting the water, like, leave the turtle, let go, but it wouldn't, and it would bring it under the water, and the turtle was trying to swim and lift his head up, but they're so weak. The turtle, they're not very strong. So, I couldn't watch it anymore. But, yeah.
And sharks, once you get blood in the water, I mean, that's just like a dog. Like, once that spark snaps, like, it snaps, and there's nothing you're going to be able to do to get that thing's prey away from it.
No, I know. So sad. But yeah, we have a lot of beautiful creatures on this island. It's wonderful.
Well, I guess kind of somewhat on a flip side, because, of course, I do have to ask this question, considering that on your show you dive into a little bit more of aggressive type cryptids, such as, Dogman, Wendigo, Sasquatch, all the little bit more aggressive ones. As far as like Hawaii goes, do you end up ever coming across any more aggressive cryptids, or have any like Sasquatch type sightings or anything like that in over there?
No, I did read that there was some kind of giant something on I think the island of Kauai. But yeah, I have not heard any of those cryptic here, besides your ghosts. A lot of times spirits, ghosts. That's what's really deep here. But yeah, not Sasquatch. No, I think the island is too small. I don't know.
I feel like you guys would get a lot of like sea creature type stuff. Like that would have been my assumption, is that if you guys really had like a cryptid community really going on there with a lot of this like folklore stuff, you don't really have like a spot to really start at. But I feel like you guys probably have a lot of stuff as far as like strange creature sightings in the water too. Especially, I mean, it's one of those things like hunters where, if hunters are always spending time out in the woods and they come across a Sasquatch, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Like, they know they saw something different. And if you have people that are always out on the water, they're always fishing, they're always seeing sharks, they're always dealing with this stuff. Like, if you see something different, you saw something different, especially if you're familiar with what's native to the area.
Yeah. I've heard a story from a friend of mine that told me that they saw a UFO. This is on Kauai, so not on this island, but they saw the water on the ocean light up, and they feel that it was a UFO going into the water, and they have a lot of UFO sightings there around the oceans.
That was one I didn't even quite think about bringing up with you directly, but I mean, just all of the connection with UFOs and volcanic areas anyways, like them flying into these areas, them disappearing underwater around volcanoes. I mean, the whole water aspect of things anyways. I'm sure that you guys probably have a crazy amount of sightings, especially coming in and out of the volcanoes themselves. I'm sure that, you may not always catch it with your eye, but if, somebody actually took the time to try to set up some cameras where they might pick up like different frequencies, different like UV, different all that kind of stuff, then, you might end up picking up some weird stuff coming in and out of the, in and out of the volcanoes themselves.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a lot of stories about that. I personally never saw that, but I did see some things in the sky. In fact, I think I told you on my last time that we spoke that I saw this crazy energy ball right here outside of my lanai here.
Inquiries About Reality will return after this quick commercial break. And we are back, so let's hop right in.
I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget, because I know things, you just time and things kind of get distorted or whatever. But so if I may just read what I wrote, I saw this energy ball right outside the lanai from my kitchen. I could see right by the cocoa head, and this was 2 a.m. on February 24th, 2002. So I got up and I was getting a drink of water from the kitchen, and I could see these bright electric blue lights shining in the kitchen. And then these bright lights started to flash, and it was flashing very fast. And I noticed that these lights were blue and orangish red, almost like a color of fire. So I thought it was a helicopter that was going to crash. I thought it was a electric fire going on with this helicopter. So I put my water down and I ran to the lanai sliding door. And as I was running to the glass door, I noticed there was this ball in the sky. It was probably as large as a basketball if you was to hold the basketball out. So from my point of view, it was much bigger, of course, in person, but since it was kind of far away, if you held the basketball, it would be that size. And it was probably twisting and, I don't know, doing its whatever chaotic spin for about, 5 or 10, 15 seconds. It wasn't very long. And then it disappeared. It was just gone. There was no sound, nothing. It just was this crazy ball of light, something I've never seen before. So I woke my husband up and we came out, and I was telling him where we saw it. And then the half a moon was coming up on the other side at the time. It was really crazy. But about 15 or 20 minutes later, I noticed that there was a ionic smell in the air, which is really weird. I don't know if there was any connection with that, but maybe. It was so weird.
I mean, especially if this thing disappeared, I wonder if it
Just
may have
gone.
phased into somewhere else. I mean, because
No.
when it comes to the whole aspect of things opening up like portals or rifts or like wormholes, like my assumption would be that there's going to be some type of like energetic change within the air that you're going to be able to sense or feel to some extent, whether it's, a smell that possibly changes, or noticing more static electricity in the air, or even noticing that the air itself is like drier maybe. Like my assumption would be if you're breaking that seal, like there is going to be some impact that ends up coming onto both sides. So I mean, if theoretically you get into this whole idea about aquatic UFOs possibly having bases underneath there or whatever, and them taking off from there and going wherever else they happen to go, I mean, it definitely seems like you may have some of the lineup for that being possibly what you may have seen.
Yeah, weird, right? And I was talking to another guy. I mentioned him to you before. His name is Sesh Hedi. He was on my podcast, and he wrote a book called Ley Lines. I have it right here. Oh, it's called The Handprint of Atlas. It's right here. It's really a good. It's a good book. He was saying that specifically here in Hawaii, there was these energy points, and these energy points comes out right there at the blowhole, right, which is not too far from me, where I'm at right now. So if you was to draw a line, like with a ruler on the map, you could draw a line from that area to our house. It's not very far at all. So he was saying that there's a lot of energy that comes out, which is why there is that blowhole there. And he was saying that all over the islands and everywhere, but there's a lot of these energy points here. And that's one of the strongest ones on this island, which kind of makes sense.
Matter of utilizing what's already there and available. I mean, this is part of what I kind of talked about with some of the other phenomenon, as far as like all the UFO sightings and all like the weird stuff that happens in Kentucky with all these caverns. It seems like when you have this, you have magnetic or volcanic rock, it ends up having these magnetic principles to it. And when you have these magnetic principles on top of vibration, it seems, and something that is moving through it at a fast rate, it seems like there's a possibility, there's a lot of like points of high strangeness that seem to come with a lot of these areas. And no different with Hawaii, that you guys have the volcanic rock. I'm assuming that there's probably a lot of different magnetic frequencies and a lot of different magnetic fields in the area. And, them, if they have these underwater bases, just kind of utilizing the area itself, as though instead of having to create this energy source, they can just utilize what's naturally there and maybe give it a little boost and be able to utilize it for what they need it for.
Yeah. And, you mentioned about the magnetic. You're right, because the beaches here, I don't know if it's like that everywhere. I can only testify to here in Hawaii. My husband, that Apple, the phone, it has that magnetic circle thing in the back.
Yeah.
So when he puts his phone down, when he picks it up, all the magnets from the sand is stuck on his phone. It's a round circle. It's really weird. So there is magnets in the land here and the sand. Yeah, the rocks. Crazy.
Oh, I'm sure that if you set up a camera, you could probably watch semi-regular, probably like UFOs flying around your property. It's one of those things that, like, if you're looking for it, you're going to see it. But, if you set something up, you never know what you might end up catching with it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, so when we used to go out looking at the stars and stuff like that, and we go to the blowhole area, the energy there is just, I don't even know how to explain it. It's, it feels so powerful. And it almost feels like there's a veil there, and you can almost feel it when it shifts. So if you're there during this time, no problem. There's a lot of people there, tourists over there, because they're all looking at the blowhole, things like that. But if you was to sit there at night, you can feel the energy shift, and it changes. It almost feels, let's say, blurry. It's like a veil over there. And that's when Sesh Hedi was telling me, oh, that area is powerful. There's so much energy there because of that blowhole, that energy from that water gushing up at that blowhole, making that, that gush. Yeah, he's like, it's crazy energy over there. I'm like, wow, that's true. I never thought about that. And I recently read that there could have been a lot of the long time ago, the Hawaiians did maybe sacrifices and things like that, and in those areas. That area is also known for night marchers as well. We talked about that earlier. So all that is, the energy there is different. So yeah, it's crazy, but beautiful. It's one of my favorite spots. And I've seen over there, I guess just with my plain eyes, you can see satellites, but you can also see other things that are not satellites because they're moving left to right. I don't know what they are.
Hold on tight, guys. This is our last break, so stay tuned. And we are back. Just for the sake of it, since we had a little bit of an interruption, I guess we could start wrapping it up towards the end, just in case you end up getting booted back out again. So I guess kind of starting to wrap stuff up towards the end. I always like to end the show with some words of wisdom. So if there was any words of wisdom you might want to bestow on the listeners today, what might it be?
Well, thank you for having me on your podcast. It was a real pleasure to join your conversation and share some truths with your audience. And I'm grateful for the opportunity and looking forward to connecting with you again, hopefully soon. Words of wisdom. Geez, I just think keep your mind open so you're not constrained in a little box. You got to think outside and think with your own mind and do your own research because there's so much out there that we really don't know what really is out there and what really is truths unless you actually go out there and do the investigation and have an open mind to accept that.
Ain't that the truth? And on top of that, of course, make sure that you guys leave Hawaii for the locals. That's probably some other really good words of wisdom.
Yes.
And
well, thank you so much.
And if anybody wanted to come and check out your awesome podcast, check out all of the awesome conversations and work you're doing over there, where can everybody come and find you across the internet, and where can people connect with you at before we lose connection again, of course?
I know. So I have a website called sensiblehippie.com, but it's spelled HIPPIE.com, so sensiblehippie.com. And my podcast is called Wake Up with Miya, and it's spelled MIYA for Miya. Wake Up with Miya. And you can find me on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, all of it, Rumble. And that's where you can find me. And I try to talk to a lot of different people with a lot of different minds. So.
And I will make sure that I include the links to that down in the show description so you guys can find it quick and easy. And I apologize to you and to the listeners for the little bit of interruptions towards the end here. We did pretty good for almost the full hour, and right at the end we had a couple of drop-offs. But yeah, so we apologize in advance for that one. But I appreciate you making the time to come on today. Absolute pleasure to have you on the reverse side now after, of course, being a guest on your show a while ago, back when it still had the original name, Sensible Hippie. But again, I appreciate you making the time to come on today, and I appreciate you sharing some of your local folklore and some of your personal stories.
Thank you. Hope I see you again soon.
If anyone would like to get in touch with me for any reason whatsoever, you guys can do so through email, which is inquiriesofourrealitypodcast@outlook.com, or through social media. Instagram and Facebook are the two that I'm the most active on. Or you guys can also get a hold of me through the submission form, which is available up at the top of the link tree. And the last way you guys can get a hold of me is through texting or calling the hotline 24/7, whatever's easier for you guys. And that number is 313-364-1551. And all of that information is available on the link tree, which is available again down in that show description. And with that, hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. Hope today's show has connected some dots in your own reality. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Have a good night, everybody.
Reality isn't what it seems. Abductees taking aboard a craft with a tractor beam. Is life a simulation or an astral dream? Aliens travel through black holes in different galaxies. Life is a bizarre odyssey, with the mic talking about philosophy. Well, Bigfoot is stalking campers as a Wendigo walks through the woods of sharpened antlers, using a Ouija board to talk to the dead like a necromancer. There's so many questions and not enough answers. So if you're interested in mysteries and abnormalities,